Okay, so just to start off, can you tell me who you are and what you do?
Yeah, I'm Jessica. It feels like Cilla Black. Oh my day. What's your name and where do you come from?
Where do you come from?
Yeah, well, that's a big question, isn't it? Well, I'm Jessica and I write. That's generally how I introduce myself. I'm self-published author, if you like, and yeah, ex-broker. Don't know if you remember about that.
I do, yeah.
Yeah, former broker. Yeah, and I'm of Jamaican heritage. My parents were born in Jamaica, and I was born in London. So I'm kind of dual heritage. And
Right.
yeah, that's how I think of myself. It's dual nationality.
And that question of like, where do you come from? Is that, do you still give that much thought? Have you had to reconsider that being based in Jamaica at all? Or are you like,
That's really interesting. That question, okay, what was interesting for me on my journey of identity, if you like, is going from the UK. I'm sure you've had this. When you're not white, people are forever asking you, where do you come from? Even if you're like, 20 minutes drive from the place that you were born.
mm-hmm.
And then coming to Jamaica, your identity or being Jamaican is not defined by what you look like. So it's more a case of how do you carry yourself, how do you speak. That's how they identify. What's your attitude? That's how they identify whether you're a Jamaican or not. And I'd say that a lot of my writing, a big catalyst for me was literally answering that question, where do you come from? I was invited to this open mic night and my friend was like, write a poem, blah, blah, blah. And I literally sat down and wrote a poem called Where Do You Come From? Which I've renamed The Bulldog and the Hummingbird. And I wrote, I am British born of Jamaican descent. My feet straddle continents. I am both, yet I am neither, and the hinterland between. I am Usain Bolt, taking tea with the Queen.
Yeah.
So in terms of like, does that question bother me? I feel like I've reconciled a lot of that, the answer to that question through my writing, in fact. And it's been a very creative space for me to explore. And also, I think that I went from feeling like an outsider in many ways to now being able to celebrate that space and recognize it for what it is, yeah.
Yeah, it's a tough, I mean, it can be like a tough one, but I think when you get to that place where you can navigate the two and be okay with that, it's a good feeling, I feel, but it's a process.
Yeah, it's definitely a process. I just think everyone kind of has to celebrate who they are and all the, contradictions of being me, because everyone has a certain contradiction to themselves, and what I've also realized is it's not really a question about race, it's more about culture.
Right.
And when you start to see things through the lens of culture, then you can sort of reconcile any of these tensions a lot easier. For example, I like drinking tea, I even the other day I bumped into these Brits and we were talking about finger mouse and bagpipes.
Yeah. There's like cultural references that are really key. Yeah.
So in many ways, I am like quintessentially British and inescapably so. And the further I get away from the UK, the more British I seem to understand that I am. And then at the same time, I understand I'm a melange at the same time, and I'm quite happy with that.
Yeah. Oh, that's perfect. I identify that so much. So I'm really curious. We've never actually had this conversation, but why did you move to Jamaica?
For me, Jamaica was and is a very healing place. It's a very calming place. I feel like Jamaica uh, confronts you with a lot of maybe a lot of things that you yourself might have been avoiding answering, and it's given me a lot of breathing space. It sounds very Oprah, but
No.
I feel like I've become more myself from being in Jamaica and having the joy of having longer periods here as well. I just also think that being of Jamaican heritage and having been born and bred in the UK, it's been really eye-opening for me to spend time in Jamaica as well. And Jamaica's always just had this kind of call to me. It's always resonated with me. So in some ways, I don't feel like I necessarily chose to come here. I feel like Jamaica chose me in some ways, that there was this kind of magnetic draw for me, and I needed to investigate my connection to Jamaica in different ways, like, you know, whether it's sort of exploring where my mum grew up and writing about it, which has been really kind of quite therapeutic for me as well. And also for my mum, because they had a lot of like a very interesting and embattled sort of family history as well. But yeah, I mean, I just would really encourage everyone to sort of look into their roots and be inquisitive about their origins.
Yeah, and I think that's like it's interesting the way in which you've answered it, because one of the things that we're sort of exploring with this project is how much of people's interest in moving is escaping from or moving to. And there is definitely a distinction, I think, and it's interesting how you've explored that magnetic pull as being the thing that led you there rather than a desire to escape.
Mm-hmm. Well, I do think it's a sort of dialectic between the two. Do you know what I mean? I don't think they're sort of mutually exclusive. But at the same time, I mean, in Jamaica, they would say following your spirit.
Right.
And I do think there's something in that, just doing what feels right to you. And I think being in Jamaica is what feels right to me. Being in Jamaica for some of the year, not all the time, but spending time here feels right to me.
Yeah. And so when did you first move? When was your first stint over there? And what was your plan? Like, what was the mission?
This is the thing. I don't think I had a great plan. So in 2012, in the summer, my granddad died at 95, and I not long after I came back, I had this really sort of insightful conversation with him just before he died, and he encouraged me to come over. And he was always like, he was kind of like a Rasta, but without the locks, you know, and very much into nature. And so, even though he's part of, you know, the Windrush generation, that era, he had always felt such a connection to over here, the same way that I do. And he really encouraged me to come over. And so not long after that, I wound up leaving my job in the city, and I came over, and I didn't really have a plan, to be honest. So I just wanted, I guess like what you're saying at that point, perhaps it was for me in some ways escaping. But also, like I was saying about the healing aspect, it was just like recuperating from the UK. It can be quite draining energetically as well in lots of different ways. And it was kind of respite from that. And I wouldn't say I had a firm plan, and I think that was part of the joy for me. But I only was here for a couple of months at that point, and then went back. And then I think I came back again because I didn't have any pull to stay in the UK, having no longer working in the city, you know.
Yeah. And so when you went back for the second time, did you have a plan then?
No, and I'm not really a massive planner. I
Wow,
guess
I
I'm a
love
bit,
this.
I guess I am a bit Jamaican.
Uh, I just make it up as
Um,
I go along.
but yeah, I mean, yeah, that is a bit of a stereotype. But yeah, I think my family and me, we tend to work our way through things. I mean, I planned to. I no, I didn't have a firm plan at that point. It was kind of like a holiday, and exploring the island as well, and just taking time out. Maybe that was my biggest plan. It's
Mm,
like, yeah, like what you were saying in reference to meditation. I think that you can gain so much when you take away the aspect of having a goal
right.
and enjoy enjoy an experience simply for what it is. There's a certain mindfulness to it, and I think Jamaica's taught me that a lot, and Jamaicans as well. Like there's very much involved in the moment, far more to me than we are in the UK.
Yeah. And can you put into words that sort of energy that you spoke of leaving behind in London, working in the city, versus what you found in Jamaica that was more like nourishing and help you connect to who you are?
Yeah, I actually read one of your pieces that you
Did you?
wrote,
Bad move.
and you talked about I can't pronounce it though. Terroir.
Ah, terroir. I can't do
Yeah,
my French
terroir.
as either. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so sorry, can you tell me the question again? Sorry.
Yeah. So talking about the energy that you left behind in the
Yeah,
UK that wasn't working for you and what you found in Jamaica that felt more appropriate.
yeah. I think also, gosh, there's so many things. I think that it was kind of a lifting of this kind of cultural amnesia that we're subject to in the UK as well, because when I think about my roots, that whole Jamaican and British thing, but then when you think about the relationship between the two countries and, you know, colonialism as well, then, you know, that becomes a whole kind of minefield also. And I think for me, it was quite refreshing to have that kind of glaze lifted
Mm,
and to see things for what they really are. When you see plantations, when you visit museums and you realize the connection between, even like me, you know, insurance and the slave trade and things like that. So that was yeah, it was just, for me, it was just a lifting of veils being in Jamaica. And then on a very basic level, just having sunshine and being exposed to nature and the sea and eating from the ground, you know, and being very connected to nature. Do you know what I mean?
yeah, I'm gonna cry. I know what you mean.
Yeah, like, you know, I can remember, you know, picking ackee off the tree and like cooking it and going to the market, and, you know, like, you know where this mango came from
Right.
that you ate. And it, that for me is so refreshing, and you can't really quite put into words
Mm,
how it feels. And I think it's also like what I was saying in terms of like the lifting of veils, is that we in the UK we have all this talk about BAME and, you know, oh, you're a minority. You're really not a minority.
right.
In the UK there's this like false, you know, there's kind of facade that you're a minority. You're actually not, and it's nice to be amongst people who look like yourself and just, you know, escape from the sort of Babylonian the Babylonian nonsense.
Yeah. Do you get that thing? Because I get that in Grenada too, where you just forget about it. It's just not even, you're just
Yeah,
not dealing with that nonsense. You're not thinking about that nonsense. But the moment when you get on the plane to go back, do you get that? You're like, okay, I'm like psyching myself up for it. I'm getting off at Heathrow or Gatwick, and it's just realizing that that feeling that you have on the plane, or that feeling when you go through customs, is what you have all the time when you're in the UK. It's a lot.
Yeah, there's definitely a certain heaviness that you feel in the UK, and I think this is part of it. What's, you know, the history of the place, and this sort of, there's a lot of secrets in the UK and masks and things, you know, and you know, even if you think about reparations, and you know, so much has not been acknowledged.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it was a movement away from that, but at the same time it is confrontation with it at the same time, you know, simultaneously. So yeah, but it's very eye-opening.
Yeah. And so tell me more about the experience of settling in Jamaica. Do you feel that you have settled at the times when you come back? Do you feel that you're like acclimatized, settled, adjusted, or like how has the process been? Because I guess typically when people think of folks in the UK or the US moving back to the Caribbean, they're typically thinking about someone in their 60s who's retired and is just going to, you know, chill out by the beach. But you're definitely not that demographic. So how has that been for you?
I do have those ways to me, you know.
No.
I do have those sort of, you know, I do like, you know, I've got my dog and I like to go to the beach, and I do have that kind of peaceful manner, which I enjoy. And I don't think, you know, knitting should be reserved.
I thought you were going to tell me that you play dominoes, and I was about to fall off my chair.
Well, I have at times. But yeah, would I say I feel settled? I don't think I feel entirely settled in the UK or Jamaica. I think in terms of, I've got like my little friendship groups,
Nice.
and I would say that, you know, you find your people in your little enclave wherever you go. Like there's certain pockets of the islands that I love. Like I love Treasure Beach, I love Portland, where I'm from. And those are like, I love Montego Bay in the sense that even though it's super touristy, I know it very well. And, you know, we came here for years and years, and it was like a second home for me for many years. Do you know what I mean? So, you know, you know, this is very like Instagram, you find your tribe or whatever. But I think settled is it's very difficult for me. I think I make myself settled.
Right.
I settle myself, but I think it's difficult when you're, you know, part of the diaspora essentially. And I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I would ever have that luxury of feeling 100% settled. And now I don't know if I really yearn for it. I think I have a certain contentment with where I am, you know?
Yeah, no, that's really healthy. That's really healthy. And so do you, was it, did you have a semi-established friendship group there already that you built up over the years of going there on holiday, or the friends that you've made, has that been since you started living there for longer periods of time?
So we knew people from before. So I have like kind of family friends over here. But in terms of my mates, like, you know, who I go to karaoke with and stuff, that's kind of happened quite organically. So like I used to do a meditation group. I was part of a meditation group and a yoga group as well. And I became really good friends with them. And I met one of my best mates down at the Jerk Centre.
Nice.
Yeah, we've been friends ever since. And she's super cool. And I don't know like how you found it, but it's interesting because your friends kind of become your family.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you're having these sorts of experiences. So
yeah, no, definitely. And I think, I don't know, I don't know how it is in Jamaica, but in Grenada, it's just a different rhythm, a different pace, and being able to connect with people matters so much more. I guess in Grenada, because there's not so much to do, so people count for a lot because there isn't so much to distract
Yeah.
yourself with otherwise. But yeah, it definitely feels much more human and interlinked, which is a refreshing thing. And so I'm really curious to know more about your book. The illustrations are beautiful, and there seems to be a lot that you would have gained from being in Jamaica when it came to writing the book. But tell me more about it. Tell me the title and how it all came about.
Yeah, so the book's called Sophia the Dreamer and Her Magical Afro. And it's a children's book about a little girl, as the title suggests, who has afro hair, and she falls asleep each time her hair's done, and she dreams about her hairstyle, and it gives her the cultural insight. Her dreams give her the cultural insight into her hair, so like the historical significance of hairstyles. But the story really just came to me quite intuitively, almost like a song, like a remembered song. I think often when I'm writing in rhyme, it just kind of spills out of me. But I think that in many ways it does mirror my own journey, like a kind of coming to consciousness, and like I'm really into the sort of self-love aspect and embracing, your natural hair. And also Jamaica has made me far more conscious and aware. So in terms of wanting to know more about my heritage, the things that I did think consciously about when I was planning the book, because I kind of had the idea in my head for quite some time, and then it just kind of spilt out of me, as it were. But I did think about what I would have liked to have known when I was younger. And as I was saying before, just like the importance of knowing your own heritage and investigating your roots. And that was the spark that I wanted to create with the book in readers, whether it's into, the Black experience, the Caribbean experience, because she does meet a Rasta, she meets a Black Panther, or it's just into having that knowledge and looking into different heritages in general, and just knowing that it's kind of a chorus rather than this monologue that we're back. Because for me, the only thing I learned about Black people and Black history at school was how the slaves were brought over. We had this cross-sectional diagram that we were given at school about how the slaves were laid out. And I remember my friend, she's from Grenada as well, Grenadian heritage, and she was up in arms. And it always just really was in my mind from the age of, I think I was about 13 at that time. And it's just like, always was a bad taste in my mouth that was all that I had known growing up. That was all that I was told about Black people by school. So it's really exciting for me that I've had so much interest from, like, I know it sounds funny, but like librarians in schools and things, because that was where I wanted to strike a chord. So I'm really happy about that, and that it's been included on different reading lists as well.
Yeah, and so how do you feel, were you in Jamaica while you were writing the book? And if so, how do you feel the setting shaped your creative process?
No, I wasn't in Jamaica when I actually sat down and wrote it, but okay. I think that the bud was created in Jamaica. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And there's certainly scenes, like there's a scene in Jamaica. My copies of the book aren't here right now, but there are some actual Jamaican scenes in there, and there is a scene from a cane field as well. And there was a time when I was driving to Kingston and I took the wrong turning for coming from Spanish Town and just got lost in a cane field. And I think it kind of sparked something in my imagination, you know, and so I wanted to have a cane field in there as well. And that tied in with like cornrows and stuff, you know. So yeah, I think if I hadn't spent time in Jamaica, I don't think I would have ever written that book or had the idea.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. I think I've really found myself in Jamaica. I know everyone talks about finding themselves, but I literally think that Jamaica is kind of, you know, it confronts you with a lot of things. I'm sure you've had this kind of experience in Grenada as well. And also, when you've got that luxury of time and being close to nature, being embedded in nature, it's you kind of have these certain spiritual experiences, I would say, and you start to realize what's important to you, and you know, what do you have to even offer as well, and what are the things that you're good at, and what are the things that you want to share with others, and you know, if you want to say like the world or what have you. And this was one of the things that I really felt that I wanted to share, you know.
Yeah.
So stories.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. And so I forget the name of it, but there's a literary festival that takes place in Jamaica every 2 years. Have you attended that?
No, I haven't. Calabash.
That's it, yeah.
Yeah, Calabash. So oftentimes I've been away and I actually had a wedding that conflicted, so it's never worked out quite well for me. I did go to one in Trinidad actually, Bocas.
Oh wow, okay, yeah.
Yeah, that was quite amazing. It was so different. But certainly I would have gone to Calabash this year, but obviously
yeah. And the certain C word, that's messed things up a lot. But so what's it like as a writer? Do you have like a crew? Do you have people that you can bounce ideas off? Is there like a literary scene where when people can go out, where people are kind of mingling and sharing ideas? What's it like?
What, in Jamaica?
Yeah.
Oh no, I'd say it's quite insular.
Interesting.
For me, yeah, definitely. I think I probably have more of that in the UK. But in terms of having a writing group, you'd need to be like more in Kingston for that. And I'm kind of, I feel like if I'm going to be in Kingston and amidst concrete, I love Kingston, but I like to go there and then leave Kingston as well. I like to be near the sea and wake up with the sea and all the rest of it, you know.
It sounds magical, absolutely magical. I mean, it's been amazing hearing your story, and for so long, like you're one of these. There are a few people who just totally give me life through their posts on Facebook and Instagram, and like when it's a cold, rainy day here, I'm like, why am I here? And you're like by the pool, drinking like a freshly picked coconut, and keep on doing it, because I think you're sowing seeds of doubt in people about their existence here that they really need to water and let flourish. So.
Oh, that's cool. Thank you, Zoe. Thanks.
No worries. And I guess like my last question is, what advice would you give to a young person who's thinking of perhaps leaving the UK or the US for a while and moving to Jamaica? What tips would you give them? What do you wish you'd known before you moved?
What do I wish I'd known? I wish I had known perhaps in some ways. I think I was a little bit blinkered when I came over, and you really have to understand and respect like that there's a kind of massive gulf between the cultures, and you can't take for granted who you are, and that there will be sort of this kind of clash in a way, and you're not really going to really understand Jamaicans. I don't expect them to accept you with you know, open arms or what have you, because you're not really Jamaican, like, you know. Yeah. And I don't think there would have been any way to understand that other than through experience as well. But having said that, I would say don't be deterred, and you know, just be practical as well. Even though I say I didn't have a plan, I did sort myself out financially so that I gave myself that space to just enjoy and, you know, relax and recuperate, you know. So just be practical as well, and make sure you've given yourself an allowance. But yeah, I think people need to think a little bit laterally, and I think everyone is now, in terms of, you know, what life is really about. You know, is life really about just getting up every day and rushing to work and then coming back home and, you know, buying your house in suburbs or whatever and paying your mortgage? Because I don't think that that's all we're here to do. Do you?
I can relate. I can definitely relate. But I think it takes a moment, doesn't it? It takes maybe, I mean, for me anyway, it's being at a certain point in life where I was willing to accept that. Because quite often you can realize it, but you fight against it. You're like, but no, I've got this degree and I've invested this and that. And yeah, then it all unravels. You're like, nope, I just need to get out. So
yeah, definitely. I mean, I felt for many years that, I remember speaking to my sister about it and saying, I find it difficult to tessellate. And I felt like I was this jigsaw piece being rammed into the wrong shape, and always trying to like bend to get myself into this shape. And it just didn't make sense to me. Do you know?
yeah.
And I think once you start succumbing to your like natural instincts, feel a lot better. I think your emotions are often a barometer or a compass even, and they often tell you what you should and shouldn't be doing.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I do think, as you say, it's not like moving overseas, that need to adapt and shift and blend stops, but the degree to which you do it changes massively, and the direction in which you bend isn't as damaging as like bending over backwards to just do stuff that makes zero sense at all.
Yeah, completely.
Yeah. Perfect. Jessica, thank you so much for speaking to me. If people want to stay in touch with you, follow your progress, check out your next book launches, what's coming up and how can the people follow you?
Yeah, I have 2 poetry books coming out at the beginning of next year. And in terms of children's literature, I have a book called A is for Aki, which will be out in February now. And that is really sort of playing with the idea that why should we define the alphabet according to certain preconceptions, like A is for apple and S is for snow, and recontextualizing it. So you can follow me at jessica.hummingbird on Instagram. And if you've got any questions or whatever, I like keeping in touch, so you can message me there.